Shopify's point-of-sale system helps you sell at every stage of your business. Need a fast and secure way to take payments in person? We've got you covered. How about card readers you can rely on anywhere you sell?
Thanks. Have a good one.
Yep, that too. Want one place to manage all your online and in-person sales? That's kind of our thing. Wherever you sell, businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 a month trial at shopify.com/listen. Shopify.com/listen.
Never go to the second location. Always trust your gut.
Hello, my name is Chrissy Champagne, and you are listening to Residue, a true crime podcast dedicated to keeping you paranoid. And today we're going to get you extra paranoid. Have you ever played with a Ouija board? I hope you have not. I will not. And I will suggest that you do not either. Today we're going to put the true crime to the side for just 1 week. We'll be back again next week with the Blue-Eyed Butcher. But today we are going to be talking about some spooky shit. The holidays are upon us. It's Christmas this week. I just wanted to give you guys something a little spooky. So we are going to be talking about Zozo, the Ouija board demon. And before we get started, don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Residue Podcast, TikTok and Facebook at Residue, a true crime podcast. And the best thing that you can possibly do for any podcast that you love is leave a 5-star review. And I also love to see your comments on Spotify. I mean, I'm just saying that a 5-star review would be a really wonderful holiday gift that you could give me. Okay, you guys, get ready for our holiday episode. I am Zozo, and don't forget to hit that follow button. I Am Zozo is an independent horror film that was released on February 18th, 2012. And this movie follows a small group of friends who use a Ouija board during a casual gathering. And at first, this experience is very playful, but then the board begins spelling a name. And that name is Zozo. The movie was shot on Super 8 film, giving it a grainy home movie look, and this choice was intentional. It made the story feel intimate and unsettling. This is my favorite genre of film. I call it teenagers or just anyone lost in the woods and something evil is chasing them. You give me a movie where you're telling me that a bunch of people are going to go hang out in the woods for the night, I'm in. I don't even give a shit what it's about. That is my favorite type of movie, and I loved this movie. I know it didn't get the greatest critical response, but I loved it. It reminded me of older films that I used to watch in the 70s and the 80s. It reminded me a lot of the feeling I got when I watched the Wes Craven made-for-television film Summer of Fear. Just that creepy, eerie, grainy film. I just feel like you're either going to basically love it or you're going to hate it. And I loved it. I like a slow burn type of film. So this movie won Best Feature Award at the United States Super 8 Film Festival in 2012 and also the Audience Choice Award at the United States Super 8 Film Festival in 2012. The movie also got a 25% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Christopher Gibson of TrulyDisturbing.com proclaimed I Am Zozo is the coolest movie I have ever seen about a Ouija board. I bet you're probably like, wait a minute, I thought she only does the truth behind your favorite movies on this podcast. That is true. And the director of this film, Scott Delala, he's actually a non-fiction filmmaker as his background. And this movie has a documentary type feel to it. That is because people believe that Zozo is real. And according to a culturecrypt.com article, and they did a review on this movie, they say do a Google search for Zozo and the name Darren Evans comes up repeatedly. Darren is a collector of Zozo-related stories and is the go-to source for information on Zozo encounters. Darren Evans also plays himself in the movie I Am Zozo. At the time, Darren was already known in paranormal circles for sharing his Ouija board experiences involving Zozo, and he had spoken on radio shows, appeared on paranormal TV programs, and he collected similar reports about Zozo from people from all over the world. And in this film, his presence blurs the line between documentary, dramatization, and for some viewers, this made the story feel validated. If a real investigator was involved, maybe the threat was real too. And this movie didn't prove that Zozo existed, but it didn't try to disprove it either. Supporters of Darren Evans believe he helped uncover a paranormal pattern, and this is something that people had encountered independently for decades, but there are critics that argue the opposite, and they say that Zozo is an example of a manufactured folklore, much like Slender Man. And skeptics point out that there's no solid historical record of Zozo as a traditional demon and no physical evidence that Ouija boards contact external entities. But what can be proven is that when people expect something frightening, their brain fills in the blanks. Okay, so basically for as long as humans have existed, we've wanted answers from beyond. And we want answers about death, about fate, about what happens after this life ends. And in the late 1800s, this desire took a very specific form. And this was the birth of the Ouija board. After the American Civil War, millions of families were grieving, death was everywhere, and many people turned to a belief system called spiritualism. And that is the idea that the living could communicate with the dead. Mediums held seances, people attended spiritualist camps, and among the tools used to contact spirits were talking boards. They were just simple boards covered in letters and numbers with a movable pointer that could spell messages. In 1891, one of these boards was patented and sold commercially, and it was given the name Ouija. At the time, it wasn't marketed as dangerous or forbidden. It was sold as a parlor game, a board game. It was something families could use at home. And for decades, the Ouija board sat on shelves next to card games and puzzles. So, horror movies and religious warnings, these sensational media stories, they begin portraying the Ouija board as a gateway to something dangerous. And by that time, The Exorcist was released in 1973, and this was when public perception had just shifted completely, and people started believing, okay, this Ouija board, this is not a toy. This is not a board game. Okay, I have never played with a Ouija board. I never will. I'm a little scared that I'm even talking about Zozo right now. Okay, so from a scientific standpoint, they say that the movement of the planchette comes from the ideomotor effect. And this is because your brain makes tiny, unconscious muscle movements and you don't feel like you're moving. But when multiple people touch the planchette, those movements combine. And this is how it moves. And expectation and, I guess, suggestion guide it where it goes. This is why people swear they aren't pushing it. They feel like these messages are real. So the traditional way that it is used, you sit together and you all put your fingers on top of the planchette very lightly, and you ask a simple yes or no short questions. You watch as the planchette moves to letters or answers, and it ends by the planchette moving to the word goodbye at the bottom of the board. And this structure matters because it gives the brain a framework to follow. So it strengthens that ideomotor effect. Even if there's an actual scientific reason as to why that damn thing is moving, I am still not going to play with it. So let's talk about Darren Evans, the paranormal researcher, and this is the person that's most closely associated with the modern Zozo story in Ouija board folklore. So his role in Zozo lore. Darren became widely known in circles after posting his own experiences with Zozo, and these accounts helped spark global interest in the name and the concept. And he has presented himself as someone who experienced strange and frightening sessions involving this entity. And this entity, Zozo, is not officially recognized as a spirit or demon, but rather a modern folklore figure associated with the Ouija board. And the oldest linked mention of a demon named Zozo appears in Dictionnaire Infernal from 1818. This is a book cataloging demons where a girl was reportedly possessed by multiple demons, including one called Zozo. According to Ranker.com, there are many encounters with Zozo that are documented. And when you do encounter Zozo while playing with the Ouija board, many people report that the planchette will rapidly move back and forth, spelling Z-O, Z-O. And the scary thing is, you don't have to summon Zozo. You don't have to be like, Zozo, we want to talk to you. Zozo will just show up. So it'll be like Z-O, Z-O, and then you'll be scared out of your mind. In one story about Zozo, players said that Zozo responded with humorous or odd statements. Also, by the way, take a shot every time I say Zozo. Just a fun little Christmas game for you. And Zozo would even predict someone going to jail in 2 months or somebody having a car accident in a few weeks. The spirit talked as if it had a personality. Some players said that when they tried to say goodbye and end the session, the planchette refused or spelled no, making them feel like the contact didn't want to let them go. This sounds like a hoot. I don't know why people get together and do this stuff. Not every encounter was terrifying. One Redditor shared that in their sessions, Zozo claimed not to be harmful and gave personal information about themselves. But some users said that when asked where Zozo came from, the answers that they got included things like, I was born in hell. Wait a minute, should I make merch that says, I was born in hell? Where were you born? I was born in hell, bitch. People also asked Zozo, hey, are you a male or a female? And Zozo would say, both. And don't even try to ask Zozo how old Zozo is because Zozo don't know. So like we said in the beginning, when you want to talk about Zozo, you should probably also talk about Darren Evans. So when did Darren Evans first meet Zozo? Well, that would be in 1982. They found a Ouija board behind his girlfriend's grandma's house. And this was a homemade board. And to make it extra creepy, the word Zozo was inscribed on the back of the board, and Darren was told to leave it alone. This board was found surrounded by jars of preserved blackbirds. I'd be like, you guys, let's get the hell out of here. We are not touching that board. We are not touching those birds. But Darren did no such thing. He played with the board, and this is when he was introduced to the entity Zozo. Darren reported that the board first spelled threatening phrases like, see you in hell, where I was born. Darren Evans wrote a book in May of 2016 titled The Zozo Phenomenon, and in this book he describes that when they first found the board, he and his friend Randy used the board all of the time. And the first time that they attempted to contact anyone, it was Bon Scott of AC/DC. They wanted to contact the lead singer of AC/DC. And during this session, that is when the session ended and the board spelled out, see you in hell. See, that's the kind of stuff I probably would have used the board for, to talk to famous people who had passed away. I might have been trying to get in contact with River Phoenix, Andy Gibb. Who would you guys get in contact with? Seriously, go to Spotify and leave me a comment and tell me who you would try to talk to if you were brave enough to use a Ouija board. Okay, back to Darren's story. So Darren and his friend Randy, they decide to use the board again, but not for a good 20 years. And this time, Zozo presents itself, and the board tells the guys that Randy was cursed and Randy will die in a car wreck. And once again, as the board is, ending the session, it says, see you in hell again. 1 year later, Darren's friend Randy was killed in a head-on collision less than a mile from his home. And even more horrifying is that the last thing Randy ever said to Darren was, Darren, I'll see you in hell. Darren has said that this long-term exposure to the Ouija board and its effects on his life and relationships pushed him to study this phenomenon of Zozo more deeply. Darren was so obsessed with this handmade board that said Zozo on the back. He knew he should get rid of it, but he didn't want to. So he finds this abandoned car in this old campsite in the woods. He goes to that car and he puts that handmade board inside of the car. Darren says, I was obsessed with that board anyway. So I go out to that board, I try to get it back, and when I lifted the trunk, all I saw was rats. Seemed like hundreds of them came piling out of that trunk. That original board had been eaten by those rats, and I wasn't expecting a family of rats to come into this car and eat the entire board. The whole board was mangled. Okay, here are a couple of different encounters people have had with Zozo. One Redditor says that Zozo cracked jokes. Okay, this would be my kind of Zozo. So this Redditor says that the session begins and the board first spelled a fake name, but then it began repeating Zozo, Zozo. But to the people playing, it just looks like Zio, 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 Zio. And then one of the people playing yelled, stop, like as loud as they could. And then it just stopped. And the group asked, hey, why did you listen to us when we asked you to stop? And Zozo says, it's because the person that screamed stop has a special connection with God. So I had to stop. But it gets weirder after that because they keep playing. And this friend who was the special friend that was close to God, they had a thick scarf wrapped around their eyes. Their friends wanted to make sure they couldn't see. So they have their hand on the planchette, their fingers on the planchette, and they're all moving it. And this friend is saying the letter out loud before the planchette falls on it. But their eyes are blindfolded. So they're all like, dude, what are you doing? How do you know? What are you doing? Can you see? And this friend said, Zozo is now in my head and telling me where to put the planchette, telling me what letter is next. Okay, so this Redditor says that they haven't touched the board since, and that Zozo was, quote, hella chill, kept cracking jokes and saying funny shit like, my friend's gonna go to jail in 2 months. That is not funny. That is not funny, going to jail in 2 months. Yeah, it's funny to you because you're not the one going to jail. Another poster shared that during a casual Ouija session with a friend in a basement, the board began spelling Z-O-Z-O without any attempt. They accidentally insulted the entity by questioning its power. And after about 30 minutes, when someone asked, what do you want from us? The planchette spelled D-I-E. And the user experienced a nosebleed at that exact moment. One account from late 2024 described the user and his girlfriend making a homemade Ouija board, and at first the board spelled Zozo, then started forming sentences suggesting kill commands containing real names of people that they knew, even names they were not thinking about. They reportedly heard banging noises in the house, they saw shadow figures, and continued to feel uneasy even after burning their Ouija board. Various folklore compilations include stories where Zozo encounters were accompanied by unexplained phenomena, such as flickering lights, random noises, sudden scratches on record players, or perceptions of shadow figures near the board. And these are the stories that are common in paranormal circles, though not reliably sourced. Another reported story involved a group of friends contacting what they thought was a deceased parent, and the session flowed until the board began spelling Zio, 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 and attempts to say goodbye were met with resistance and requiring insistence to finally shut down this session. Later, these friends claimed that they had a streak of bad luck. So along with appearing in the film I Am Zozo, Darren Evans also appeared on Ghost Adventures, and he was featured as himself on the Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures in an episode that focused partly on a location linked to his research, specifically a house in Oklahoma associated with Zozo phenomenon. And this episode included some reported strange activity during an investigation, which Darren connected to his long history with the board and Zozo. And he even appeared on Coast to Coast AM, a long-running late-night radio show focused on paranormal and fringe topics. And on these broadcasts, he discussed Ouija boards, the Zozo legend. his interpretations of how and why Zozo interacts with users. And according to Darren, the board started affecting his personal life, including relationships and his emotional well-being. And he claimed that Zozo attached to him and caused distress. Darren Evans helped give the story of Zozo shape through books, interviews, and the film I Am Zozo. He documented what he and others experienced, and this spread a cautionary tale of this malevolent entity known as Zozo. And what makes Zozo so compelling is not whether it's real, it's that it feels real. And the stories tap into something fundamental. It's our curiosity about the unknown. I feel like we're just drawn to stories that make us feel uncomfortable, that make us feel afraid. That is why I watch horror movies as a relaxation technique. So whether or not you believe that this Ouija board is just a game, or if it's something far more sinister, the next time your friends ask you if you want to play with a Ouija board, just ask yourself if you are ready to see the words, I am Zozo. Stay safe and stay paranoid. And happy holidays.